a 23-acre suburban lake in West St. Louis County, Missouri, drained through a hole in its own floor in 3 days. For 676 families, the nightmare was waiting outside their windows. They had paid for calm water, for lakefront views, for the illusion of permanence. Then they woke up and found a muddy crater where the lake had been the day before. Near the dam, a 50-foot wide crack opened in the lake bed. Millions of gallons did not simply disappear. They plunged into the limestone underneath, vanished from sight, and turned the bottom of the lake into mud. Stocked fish died in the receding pools. Suburban families stood at the railings of their decks, staring down at a hole in the ground where the water used to be. And this is where it changes, because the water was not gone at all. It resurfaced 4 miles to the north at Lewis Spring, where it had no business being. The repair bill came in at $650,000. The Board of Trustees voted to assess every homeowner $1,000 in cash. Then they refilled the lake. Then it drained again. Then it drained a third time. And as of recent reporting, the same lake has now been leaking on and off for 40 years. That is the part that turns a disaster into something worse. It did not end. It stayed. This is Lake Chesterfield in the suburb of Wildwood, Missouri, about 25 miles west of downtown St. Louis. The development was called the Harbors at Lake Chesterfield. The dam was built in 1986. The homes were built starting in 1987. And according to a 2019 geophysical study from the Missouri University of Science and Technology, the dam has been losing water from the day it was built almost 40 years ago. The strangest part of the story is not the drain itself. The real danger was what was sitting underneath the dam the entire time, hidden below the neighborhood, below the road, below the calm suburban surface, and what the engineers found when they finally went looking. This is how it happened. After heavy thunderstorms in early June of 2004, residents at the north end of the lake noticed water draining through what looked like a small leak on the shoreline. At first, it was just a hole roughly 10 feet by 10 feet. But that was only the beginning. Within hours, it grew. The ground kept giving way. The lake kept feeding the opening. And by Wednesday afternoon, June 9th, the lake was empty. A 50-foot wide crack lay exposed in the lake bed. The water level had dropped down to mud. Fish died in the shrinking pools. The decks, the homes, the promised waterfront setting all looked out over failure. And right now, in the middle of that image, the detail that matters most is this. The water resurfaced 4 miles north at Lewis Spring. This is the CRSD conduit signature. Surface water flows underground through interconnected solution channels in the limestone, and it reemerges at a topographic low point miles away. Missouri sits on one of the most cave-riddled limestone landscapes in North America. The Missouri Department of Natural Resources lists more than 16,000 cataloged sinkholes and more than 5,000 documented caves statewide. St. Louis County alone has more than 100 cataloged caves. Lake Chesterfield at Wildwood was built directly on top of this geology, and that fact had been there from the start, silent and patient, waiting underneath the dam. The specific rock under Lake Chesterfield is called Burlington Keokuk limestone. It is Mississippian in age, several hundred million years old, and it is famous for what geologists call solution-widened joints. Those joints are vertical fractures that rainwater slowly dissolves into, turning stone into a hidden system of vertical pipes. Those pipes act as natural drains. So when a lake is built on top of them, the lake does not just sit there. It becomes the input to a plumbing system the engineers did not see. The Homeowners Association voted to assess every household roughly $1,000 in cash. Total repair cost was about $650,000. The engineering firm Shannon and Wilson designed a grouting and lining program to plug the sinkhole. They flattened the east bank slope. They installed a clay liner. They added riprap. The basin was restocked with thousands of fish. By August of 2005, the lake was almost back to normal, and for a moment it looked like the damage had been contained. But here is the detail that tells the real story. In September of 2005, the lake started draining again. Residents watched the water level drop at least a foot per day. Bruce Kella, the chair of the Homeowners Association Board of Trustees at the time, told the Associated Press that it was déjà vu all over again. He said that last year he knew what to do, but this year he wasn't sure. That uncertainty is what makes this feel alive even now, because the threat was still growing, and the repairs were not winning. Over the next several years, the Board of Trustees spent more than $200,000 additional dollars on rolling repairs, including a $155,000 rebuild of what they called the belly of the lake. None of it stopped the leakage. Not the grouting, not the lining, not the reshaping of the bank, not the money already gone. The water kept finding the same way out or another way out through a system no one had fully mapped. Then it happened again. In June of 2013, the water started falling again, this time at about an inch per day. Trustees hired a geologist to find the source. Board Chairman Jim Wasco ordered the sluice gate open to lower the level by 24 inches so the engineers could inspect the lake bed. And it gets worse. The sluice gate jammed open. The rest of the lake drained out. Stocked fish died en masse a second time. The Missouri Department of Conservation told the homeowners that fish rescue would be cost prohibitive. That's the kind of sentence that lands hard, because it means the losses had become routine enough to be measured against budget. Not the first failure. Not the last. Just another moment in a long and expensive collapse. Zoom out and the picture gets stranger. Between 1986 and 2019, the dam at Lake Chesterfield had been rerouted, relined, or repaired again in at least 5 separate documented rounds. 1988, 1994, 1995, 2004, 2005. And it kept leaking. Year after year, repair after repair, the same quiet enemy remained under the basin, under the embankment, under everything the subdivision had trusted. In 2018, the city of Wildwood approved funding to bring in an independent engineering team. The concern was Pierside Lane, the road that runs directly across the top of the dam embankment. If the dam failed under that road, vehicles could plunge in. That's no longer just a property problem or a maintenance problem. That's what happens next when chronic leakage meets public infrastructure. The city paid $26,000 of a $35,000 drain operation. The Homeowners Association paid the other $9,000. Then came the imaging. A team from the Missouri University of Science and Technology, led by Dr. Neil Anderson, began geophysical imaging beneath the lake bed. In 2019, James Danielle Hayes published the master's thesis that finally explained the entire problem. Using electrical resistivity tomography, multi-channel surface wave analysis, and spontaneous potential surveys, Hayes mapped what was actually underneath the dam. What he found stripped away any remaining illusion. The depth of bedrock under the lake floor was only 5 to 10 feet. Most importantly, he found 3 vertical conduits of flowing groundwater directly beneath the dam and 2 additional low resistivity zones interpreted as seepage pathways through the dam itself. In Hayes's words, the dam had been constructed in places on highly weathered limestone. Translation: the lake was sitting on top of a natural drainage system that was actively pulling water away faster than the dam could hold it. Not a freak accident. Not a mystery anymore. A built subdivision lake, a dam, a road, and 676 families placed on top of a geological escape route that had been there for several hundred million years. And this is the part that should make people uneasy right now. The Lake Chesterfield story is not a one-off. Eastern Missouri is studded with subdivision lakes built on the same Burlington-Keokuk limestone. Some have already drained, some are leaking right now. The state has more than 16,000 cataloged sinkholes. Many of them sit under suburban development that was never geophysically surveyed before the dirt got moved. The Lake Chesterfield Homeowners Association is still managing the lake today. The water level remains a chronic problem. The dam has been continuously leaking in some form since 1986. That's almost 40 years of slow, ongoing failure of a piece of suburban infrastructure 676 families paid full price for. Almost 40 years of watching water vanish, of refilling, repairing, restocking fish, holding meetings, writing checks, and waiting to see where the next loss will appear. So 3 questions hang over Lake Chesterfield tonight, and none of them feel small. How many other subdivision lakes across eastern Missouri are sitting on top of vertical conduits no one has imaged yet? What is the actual property value impact of buying a lakefront home where the lake disappears every few years? And what happens to Pierside Lane the next time the cover collapses under it? The dam is still leaking. The fish are still being restocked. The Board of Trustees is still meeting. And somewhere under the basin in the limestone at this moment, the next conduit that decides to open is already there.